Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time.
Okay, Simon, it is time for our weekly intermission, which is the period of the podcast where we break away from the reviews and the chit-chat about movies and TV shows to have a chit-chat about movies and TV shows. This week, based on the fact that The Fall Guy is hitting cinemas this week, it got you and I both thinking about stuntmen, because the initial thought I had as I left the cinema was, when I grow up, I want to be a stuntman. So I believe I texted you that very sentiment, and you said, "Shut up, you're an adult, be a grown man, and just, deal with the fact that you're not a stuntman and you never will be." That's a direct quote.
I know exactly what you said. I said, if it'll make you happy, I'll push you off a building. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, very witty. Still laughing. I've never been more dejected. But, Simon, this is an opportunity for us, and we'll burn through this pretty quickly on the chat, just to talk about some of our favorite stunts. And before we get into it, I just want to put this out there as a top-level thought. I don't know, because I'm not a stuntman yet, I don't know what makes for a good stunt and a bad stunt. All I know is I will watch something on a screen and go, "Holy smokes, did you look at that?" And I think that's pretty cool. Okay. But also, I don't know whether there's actually a lot of technical difficulty in that, if it's a safe stunt, if it's an easy stunt to do that requires safety and planning around it, as all good stunts usually do. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but I know what I enjoy on screen, and that's what I'm going to be talking about.
All right. Well, I can kick us off with one of the most iconic and still one of the most breathtaking stunts in cinema history. In 1928, Buster Keaton, and many film lovers will be familiar with this scene, Buster Keaton in a film called Steamboat Bill Jr. stood on a sort of set piece of ground while the facade of a house, the actual full construction at the front of the house, toppled onto him, and the position he was standing in on the dirt on the ground in front of the house was exactly where the one open window was going to fall. So many people will know this clip. The building falls forward. He stands with his back to the building, so he doesn't know where it's coming, and the open window fits perfectly over his body. Now, you can see the weight in this facade. If this had been inches off, it would have split him in half the way that building came down. It is one of the great and most iconic stunts that an actor has ever pulled off. Buster Keaton was an extraordinarily physical man and could do some of the most amazing stunts in history. And this is probably the most technically precise stunt and still remains a landmark stunt to this day. Do check it out. I might even drop that into our Facebook and page so people can see exactly what I'm talking about, but it's an extraordinary piece of stunt work.
Look at you. You're exactly what's wrong with Hollywood right now, Simon, and what's wrong with Hollywood as far as the stunt community are concerned. They don't get no respect. And here we are talking about stunts, and you're like, "Oh, the greatest stuntman was an actor." How about that, Simon? You've just gone for the exact thing that the stunt community rail against. And the reason why, if they were celebrated in the Academy Awards like they should be with an award for stunts, then that sort of conversation would be happening. You can
First of all, they're called stunt actors. They're called stunt actors, so that's a legitimate point. But it would have been a team of stunt people and a team of technicians who made that stunt work to ensure to ensure Buster Keaton was okay. So I am not taking any credit away. It is a beautifully crafted stunt that a whole lot of people behind the scenes, just like in every other stunt, would have made happen.
Oh, weird. I didn't hear any of them mentioned. I just heard Buster Keaton, but whatever, you do you. Simon, I'm going to just rattle off my list really, really quickly because it's incredibly base. Okay. As I said, I don't know what makes for a good stunt because I'm not there, but these are the things that have excited me over the years. There's a stunt, and this is echoed in The Fall Guy, so maybe it's just some recency bias and why I'm thinking about this one. But to me, the greatest stunt of all time was watching the Riggs character in Lethal Weapon jumping off the building at the very beginning of that movie with the guy that was about to commit suicide and lands in one of those big sort of inflatable safety things. To me, when I think about stuntman, like that's immediately the first thing I ever think of. A lot of my thinking about stunts is just people jumping off roofs as a result of that. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There's actually a blooper. Just very briefly, there's actually a blooper in that stunt. They're meant to be joined by handcuffs at the at the wrist in pure police style, but as you see them fall through the air, it's a breakaway police cuff. You see it come apart. They did so. It's a great stunt. There's no doubt about that. A fairly standard sort of bag jump, made a little bit more dangerous because it's a double jump, but it's certainly effective.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just a fun little movie moment. I love that. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Another stunt that I always think about is the person stuck on the side of the car doing a bit of punching and having to hold on and whatnot. And Raiders of the Lost Ark is the typical, version of that one. So if you think about
and the boulder scene at the start,
yeah, but like the boulder, like is that a big stunt or is it just a person running from a big foam ball? Like who can really say? But you got to hold.
This is where we get into how we capture the essence of a stunt, whether it's in the editing or whether it's in the staging and the filming. There's nobody doubting that Spielberg can't shoot an amazing piece of stunt work, as you just point out. But it's a team effort. That starts with the crafting and the planning of the stunt by the incredible stunt coordinators.
Look, absolutely. And so that's the challenge I have because, as I said, I don't know what makes for a good stunt and what doesn't. Because movie magic, Simon, thinking about other stunt work, there's stunt people that throw their bodies right in front of things, but there's also stunt guys that do a lot of driving and stunt work that way. So I think about things like the really elaborate car chase scene in Ronin, which, you can also apply that to the elaborate car chases in, so many other movies over the years. In the spirit of people hanging off the side of cars, I think about Death Proof with that very lengthy sequence with, a lot of bodies hanging off cars and whatnot throughout that.
The great Zoe Bell, the Australian-New Zealand actress.
Yeah, she's tied to the front of the car for a good portion of that. Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, and this is putting that actor at the forefront of it. The big thing that's used to sell those Mission Impossible films for the last couple of movies has been the big stunt, and it's always well-insured actor Tom Cruise throwing his body on the line for possible death, with the idea of getting a cinema thrill.
Which is the best of them. And you've got him hanging off a plane. You've got him running around the big building in Abu Dhabi.
So this is the thing. This is the thing, Simon, where movie magic plays such a role. Where I look at these big stunts that are always oversold, and I'm never that thrilled by them. So the only one that I think is genuinely thrilling, and this just plays into my own issues with heights, is watching Tom Cruise on the side of that building in Abu Dhabi in Mission Impossible GoPro. To me, that is the best of them. But then seeing him on the side of the plane as it's taking off, I'm sure it was difficult, but it just kind of looks like a movie stunt.
He's on record as saying one of the most dangerous stunts he's ever done in the Mission Impossible films was in the very first one when he blew up the fish tank in the restaurant, and De Palma said there was going to be a certain amount of water coming through, but what they didn't tell them was that they almost doubled the amount of water coming through, and the stunt team and Tom Cruise himself were completely rattled by this wave of water from the fish tank. So it looks great on screen. It's maybe not the most dangerous stunt to stage, but in the filming of it, it was quite a dangerous moment.
Yeah. We've talked about it on the podcast, but the most recent Mission Impossible film where Tom Cruise is parachuting, I guess, gliding from the side off a motorcycle to land on a train, I'm sure was incredibly difficult and elaborate to stage that. There's a lot of moving parts which could go terribly wrong with it. But it just didn't quite seem as thrilling on screen as I'm sure the complexity of making that stunt work.
That one.
Yeah, so
for sure.
it is what it is. So stuff like that. But also, I guess there was that stunt where he was jumping off the side of the building to land on the rooftop in London in the previous film, Mission Impossible Fallout? No, Fallout's the most recent one. Was it Rogue Nation? Whatever it was. Whatever it was where he landed and broke his leg and kept on running.
Can't remember.
Yeah.
They all blur together for me.
But anyway, that's what I think about when I think about the work of the stuntman. But I'm very supportive of the idea of a Academy Award for stunt guys being delivered.
For sure.
I think that would make for one, great TV, and two, a under-recognized part of the industry actually getting their props. And one of the fun things in a Fall Guy is they do make reference to the fact that they're not nominated in that way.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of ones that I want to mention very quickly. As we record this, I'm a couple of days away from showing the original Mad Max at a drive-in here in Sydney. We should mention the late, great Grant Page, who, upon whose broken neck, several broken legs, the reputation of the Australian exploitation film industry was born. His work in Mad Max, notably the driving of the car through the caravan that sort of kicks off that incredible opening sequence of Mad Max, is extraordinary. The work he did on Death Cheaters, the work he did on so many other great Australian action films, and even not great films, but just great stunt work. Grant Page is an absolute hero. Buddy Joe Hooker and Glenn Randall are two of my favourite Hollywood stunt people. Glenn Randall was the stunt coordinator on Raiders. The scene in which Harrison Ford swings into the cabin of the German supply truck and starts pounding on that German driver, that's Glenn Randall on screen, and he staged and coordinated a lot of the stunt work in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Buddy Joe Hooker was best friends to the great Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds, and did a lot of their work on Hooper, which I mentioned earlier in the podcast, on Smokey and the Bandit, and all their great sort of Cannonball Run as well. So they're some of the great Hollywood actors. Going back, the full physical dexterity it stood to do the chariot race sequence in Ben-Hur still stands as one of the most incredibly staged bits of stunt work, and one of the most dangerous bits of stunt work in film history. So there are so many. Just as we do this, I'm scanning through so many great pages on the internet about the stunts. Do join us later in the podcast, where as part of the history quiz, I'll be mentioning one of the great action stunt actors of all time as one of the answers to the question. But solid intermission, so much great stunt work to talk of in film and television history.